What's going on, everybody? Gary B. Jr. here, your media consultant. Today, we're about to take a deep dive. We're about to go into the lab and we're going to be discussing all about shows in FreeShow. So, pull out your computer, um, get some uh, ideas of what you want to create, and let's go through this together. And you can feel free to pause the video, obviously, and start working on what you're learning real time, because the goal of this is to equip you to have a greater understanding of how to be comfortable using FreeShow and managing your shows in the program. So let's get started. What I want to do first is tell you a little bit about shows. So first of all, with shows in FreeShow, they allow users to compile a series of slides together. Okay, so if you look at my screen here, you'll see I've got a number of different slides. This particular show has 22 different slides in it. All right. The show can encompass any number of things, right? It can be songs, it could be scriptures, it could be game show screens, it could be videos, images, flyers, whatever you want, you can put that into a show. All right. It could be a timer if you wanted to, even, right? Now, in this video, the goal is to take a deep dive into understanding how to create, edit, and manipulate shows with ease. So let's talk about first how to create a show. I'm going to highlight 3 different ways you can do this, and then I'm going to show you how to do it. All right. So the very first way I would recommend or think about that you can edit a show is if I go up here to my view and I go to toggle focus mode, I'm going to show you what it looks like if you were to start the program. All right. All right. So when you start the program, it looks like this. Right? And you can do a new show directly from this page. All right. When you hit that new show, it'll open up a pop-up window, which we'll see in a second. So this is one way. If you already have a project set up, you can go over here to your left panel and you can right click and you can select the option here that says new show yet again. And then the final way that you can do this is go down to your drawer and select the shows tab, and you can go to the bottom right down here in this middle section and you can select new show. And that's what we'll do together. All right. So this show is popped up for us to begin creating it. And the first thing you want to do is type in what you want the title of your show to be. This is important because as soon as you enter through this and complete this process, it is saved into your free show library. All right. So we're going to do a search for I Speak Jesus. All right. And it says it's going to be in our songs category. If we wanted it to be somewhere different, let's say we weren't making a song, but we were making a presentation, you can make a presentations category. If you wanted it to be a scripture, it could be there as well. This will default to whatever your current show is in. Okay. Whatever the current category or the current show that it's displaying, it'll default to that category for your next show that you create. All right. And I'm going to actually make this be a capital I. And I could do a quick lyrics. And what that does is it opens up a panel for you to paste in the lyrics to your show. And you can put in brackets to break out the verses before you actually paste in the verse, or after you paste it in, you can just put the bracket and put the word verse inside of there or chorus inside of there, and it'll actually highlight that and group those together, those slides that are up under that particular bracketed verse or chorus or hook or whatever terminology you use, and it'll put it into a group for you. What we're going to do is we're going to do a web search. All right. And the web search is unique because it allows you to know the name of the song or some of the words of the song. And I'm looking at my song here. I need to capitalize my letters because this is going to become my title. Right. It's going to be the search, but it's also going to become my title. All right. But it allows you to find the song on the internet with the lyrics, and it's completely organized in the way that it is found. All right. The other way is just a blank, empty show, but we're not going to do that. We're going to select web search, and it's doing a search for I Speak Jesus. And you'll see all these different folks that have sang this song. I'm not sure who the actual owner of the song is. If I look here, we'll just do this first one and let's see what it looks like. And it shows the different contributors. It shows verse 1, it shows the person of that. And it shows the words here. Okay. And then you'll see it has the word bridge, but then it also has the artist in there. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to keep the title equals, the artist equals, but the contributors, we don't need that. So we can delete that. And then we don't want it to necessarily say the person's name. We can just have it say verse. And we don't have to keep the number 1 in there even, because it'll automatically categorize that for us in FreeShow into a group based on if this is the second time verse is mentioned, then this will be loaded as the second verse. All right. Chorus, we're going to get rid of these names here. And this is just some quick and easy cleanup that you can do on any time that you find a song that you want. You can go in and do this. If you don't, it'll just show those as the name of the group with everybody's name in there. So it can get kind of busy in the title of this. So I'm just cleaning it up before it even gets there. So I'm selecting these brackets, which is a traditional way to do it, right? You can put chorus in brackets like we talked about. And then here's the bridge. We're going to select that and we're going to bring out the names and just make it say bridge. And this one here, the chorus. And again, and again with the bridge. And if you are the music director or the worship leader, you can adjust this however you want to. Now you can actually, edit out the lyrics that you don't plan to use or sing, because every worship team is going to be a little bit unique. If you are not the worship leader, then you want to make sure that you touch base with your worship leader to make sure this is how they plan to sing the song, and you import it in that way. And if you can't get with them before you import it, make sure that before you present the show, before you present the slides, that they get to review it and tell you what they don't do or what they don't need in that show. All right, so now I've got everything kind of cleaned up here, and the brackets are simple brackets with the simple title. And then this here, title equals and artist equals, this is for the metadata, and it should go in as such. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and hit create. And you'll see here, it said artist equals and titles equals at the front, but you don't see that here anymore. But it is, or it should be, in the metadata. You'll see the title here, I Speak Jesus, the artist, Charity Gale. That's only because it was there already. You could even add more metadata if you want to, including your CCLI number. If you have one, you could put that in there at the quick lyrics section, or you could put it in here at this point here now as well. All right. So we've created our show. We picked one of the 3 options. We did the web search. All right. And then it kind of took you, when you do the web search and you select the song, it takes you basically into your quick lyrics section as well. So I could have easily copied and pasted that same information. Now, we created our first show. Now we need to figure out, how do we edit this show? We'll see, first of all, that the verses are there, verse 1, verse 2, chorus 1, verse 3, and so forth and so on. And if you notice, I went over here to the right to the metadata. I can select groups again, and I can see those there as well. All right. So in order to edit a show, you got to go to the edit page at the top center of the screen here of FreeShow. You can go there and it'll bring you to the individual slides that you can edit. And it starts off with the very first one. And you can go in here, you can change everything you want to about this individual slide in terms of the font, the color, and all that kind of stuff. But I would pause on that for now. Don't worry about trying to arrange this individually, because this is a whole song. We want it to be consistent. So we want the background to be the same. We want the layout to be the same. And the best way to do that is using a template. So we're not going to worry about editing from this page so much as it pertains to adjusting any of the content over here, because whatever we want it to look like, you can design it that way. And then it will become your template, and you would just drag that into your templates and apply it to every slide. But you don't need to adjust every slide individually. Okay. Now, the other part of this is, when we did that show, let me go back real quick. When you do a new show, and I'm going to do a fake name here. This is a fake show. And we go to quick lyrics. You'll get this option at the top that says more options. And ours was default set to format the text. That means it'll capitalize the first letter in the sentence, and to auto assign groups. I've also got it set to the max number of lines being 2. You can make yours be as many as you want. You can make it be 4. You can make it be 0, and it'll default to whatever the layout is from the way you've arranged what you pasted, or the way that it's arranged from the web search. And what it'll do is it'll break to a new slide every time there's a blank line in the text. Okay. So if you're bringing it in from Google Docs, for example, and you've got a line break, right, to where you've hit enter and it's a blank line, that'll become a new slide. And you might do that every 4 lines. You might do that, you want to show the entire hook or entire chorus, and it might be 5 or 6 lines until you hit enter again and leave a blank space. For me, I like to keep it consistent to where I usually will have anywhere from 2 to 4 lines per slide, and you can dictate that from here, or you can dictate it later on in your styles. All right. And so there's 2 ways you can do it. We've got ours set to where it's 2 lines because that was just the default that we had. All right. Now, editing the show. We talked about going up to the top. There's another way you can make edits to this real time while you're actually showing the show, which is really cool. If you go down to the bottom right, you can see here there's an option that says change slide view. And right now it's on grid view. So I can select that and it brings me up to a whole different view. And this is called list view. All right. And I can go in on the right side where the text is listed and I can make any changes I want to the text real time. This really comes in handy during a sermon when someone is teaching and you want to add a quick note of what they're saying. Or if your worship team or your praise team or your choir, typically is going to be a worship team, they're going to, if they start to sing new words or make adjustments to the song on the fly in terms of they're just flowing with it and they're singing something that's not in any of the slides, you can go into this view and you can adjust. The last slide is what I like to do. I'll make a blank slide if I need to, because you can't really duplicate. You can do a new slide if you want to, and you can make that in here. So you can go new slide and you can have this blank slide that you can make new lyrics, right? So you can say new lyrics here. That's what I'll put in there. All right. That they're singing real time. And you can simply select over here and it'll pop up those new lyrics in here real time. All right. And then you can go to any slide that has the current lyrics in there already. Okay. But when they make it up new lyrics, I would just keep this slide active and you just go in there and you can type and update it. And so you can type in here and it shows you over here what you typed. It will not update or populate until you hit enter and then select it. All right. And now let's say I'm in here and I'm changing. I want to change it again. And I'm selected. This slide is actually selected. It still won't update even after I hit enter. I would have to go over here and I need to hit the update button. Okay. And so when you select that, then it changes with you. Okay. So you have complete control real time while you're showing a show. All right. Now, the other way that you can edit a show is you can go into your show drawer down here. You can find a show. So here's Agnes D. I can right click on that and I get an option here to edit. And when you do that, it brings you into the edit page that we started out with at the very top. This is just another way to get to it. Okay. And you can go into it from the shows tab as we did. And I just found a show and I right clicked on that show and it gave me an option to edit. All right. Let's talk about how to find shows. There's a number of ways you can find shows in FreeShow. I'm going to show you 3 different ways you can do that. So the first way is going to be a really easy way that I love because it adds so many other layers to this opportunity. All right. So let's go back to the I Speak Jesus song. And I'm going to take this slide out. We don't need that. I'll close that. And let's go back into this and right click on this. And we're going to delete this slide from the show. And so we'll have the original song. But in order to find a show, okay, you can go into your computer and do Command G or Control G if you're on a Windows computer, and you can type in anything that you need to find that show. So this show has the word speak in it, so I can do the word speak, and you'll find that I can find that song called I Speak Jesus right there. All right. If you were to select any of these, they will automatically become your show. So here's one that says Oceans, right? It has the word speak in it somewhere, so I can select that. Now notice that Oceans comes up, but it was not added to my project. When you do a Command G or Control G search, you have to understand that it's going to automatically put it into your preview space to edit and show, but it is not going to add it to your project. All right. So I could automatically start showing this song. I can go into it. It'll automatically change my background and I can start playing the song. All right. but it has not been added to my project. If you want to save it and add it to the project for later use, as an archive to see what you did that Sunday, then there's another way, a better way to do a search. All right. So that way is to go into the drawer, okay, down here at the bottom. So I can click on this, or I can click on it to make it pop back up. And on the far right side of the drawer, you'll see this option that says search. If I type in the word speak, you'll see the same options that we found in the quick search show up here, but I also see oceans, which is highlighted yellow because it's active, okay? But I can select this song and I can drag it into my project. So now oceans is a part of the project. It's highlighted yellow there because it's actively showing. It's already actively showing from the quick search that I did earlier, all right? Now, this is one way you can, or this is the second way. So on the right side, you can do a search, and that right search requires a couple of things that we need to understand. So you need to be in the all of your shows, and then you need to be able to search over here on the right. Okay, I can clear that search out. It'll completely clear out. If I were to go to the left side, you'll see under all, there are more categories. You can do a search under your particular category. So I can go to presentations, and I can do the word speak. And notice that I don't see any songs. I don't see I Speak Jesus. I don't see oceans. I see all these things that were in the category presentations. If I go to the category songs, speak is still being searched for. And you'll see now I speak Jesus and oceans. Those are some important features and facets to understand when you're trying to find a song, a show of any type very quickly. You've got three options, right? Command G, you can go over to the right and do a search under the all category, or you can go to individual categories because you know it's in there. You just can't figure out or find where it is because you can't remember exactly the first letter because they're in alphabetical order in there, but you might not have remembered what you typed in there. You can do it from the far right, doing a quick search in an individual category, okay? And it'll narrow down your search for you to just what's inside the category, all right? Let's talk about organizing our shows. Now, this one's a fun one because you have a lot of options yet again. One of my favorite ways to organize my shows that we saw from the very beginning, when you select new show, you can select a category to put that show in. And if you don't have one that you want it to be in, you can go to the very bottom of that list and you can create a brand new category. So you can automatically organize your shows in a category. That is where they're stored. That is the library of all your shows. So FreeShow will always hold your shows for you. You can also organize them by putting them in the project. All right. So in a project is a way. So this project has a date on it. It's called training service. So it's just one that I use for training purposes, like a video like this. And it says a date, okay, August 19, 2025. And so I can take a show and I can drag it into a project. Now, it does not remove it from the library of all of the shows. It just puts it into that project. So when I close this project, if I go back out and I go back into, I go to that project, I'll go back out to this project, I can go back out and I'll come right back to my training service. That project or that show is still in the project. So it's saved there. It's organized in that way. All right. Now, if you notice, I've got a lot of colorful tags here in this project. One is called closing, one is called scriptures, one is called worship. All right. So this song, Oceans, it doesn't really fit in the closing, just like I Speak Jesus. So I can select that. I'm gonna hold down Command and Control on a Windows computer, Command on an Apple computer, and I'm gonna drag these into the worship section. All right. And you'll see the little blue line as you hover over, and they'll drop in there and they will be removed from the current current section that they were in, and they'll be put into a brand new section. This is what we call sections, but they only are accessible or available inside of your project. All right. And so in your project, if you want to create a new section, you can just right click in a blank space and you'll see an option that says new section. And I'm going to call this one new songs for now. You will make yours based on the order of your service. My recommendation is to have one that's going to have a section for all your songs, one that's going to have a section for all your scriptures. At the very least, you may have some things at the very beginning of service that don't fit into any of those sections. So you might have something called the opening or the countdown or something along those lines that makes sense for your ministry. And then at the end, every ministry or organization, every event is different. So you might have some things at the end. It might be closing slides. It might be giving. It may be communion. It may be the closing song or closing scripture. Those things can be in a section called closing or ending or whatever you want to. Now, I've made this section called new songs. All right. Now, notice it doesn't look like this one that says closing. It's just a blank thing, and it's inside of this one. All right. In order for it to be its own space, right? In order for it to be in its own space, because if I drag this into there, notice it's in there, but it's a part of the closing. So your sections can be inside of other sections, basically. But if I wanted to stand alone, I can right click on this new songs and I can change the color. All right. I'm going to make this be a brighter green. All right. And then it says choose this custom color and you hit save. And now you got this new songs section inside of a project and it's holding a show. All right. And I can put other shows in there. So maybe I want to add in this one, and you'll see that they get stacked in there. You can arrange the order of these by just dragging them up and down. And so you're building out this full service on the left side with everything that you need. So let's say real quick. So we're learning how to organize. We've seen how to find them. We know how to edit. We know how to create. But let's talk about scripture shows just quickly before we get into the final part of this video. So scriptures can become their own shows as well. First off, on the left side here, you have collections. These are multiple versions of the Bible that are combined to be a collection to show up like you see here on the right. These are two different versions of the Bible on one screen, okay? Now, I can select any number of verses. So I'm going to select this number of verses, and I can right-click, and I can say Convert to Show. So we're talking about shows, so I can hit that. This is yet another way to create a show. And then it gives you some options to edit the way that it's formatted and the way that it looks. So the max verses per slide, I recommend keeping that still set to 1. Okay. Even if you're doing a collection with more than one Bible, it's still going to show one verse in each of those translations on one slide. That's very helpful for your viewers. The split reference is important as well, because what that does is it allows the volunteer who's running the show and the people on that are viewing the show to see the actual scripture, the book, the chapter, and the reference that it is for that particular what's showing on that slide. If you turn this off, it's just going to show the whole range. And we picked a whole range of verses, so it's just going to show the whole range of verses. And we might be on verse 3, but it's just going to say verses 1 through 5 at the bottom of that particular slide. This allows it to say verse 3 is what's showing, and that's what's up at the top with the words showing the scripture, all right? And then you can do reference on the first slide, and that's more of just an individual slide that just shows the content of this particular selection you made of verses. Now we select this option that says Convert to Show, and you'll see that I've got my show created, and I've got Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, Genesis chapter 1, verse 2, verse 3, and verse 4. Now notice that some are longer than others, and that's just a part of the way that scriptures are written, right? And so if I go into this and I select this option on the bottom right to change the view, I can look at it this way. And in this view, it doesn't let you edit it, but it just changes the view. It's more of a lyrics view. So it's not really necessary for scripture. If I hit it again, I'll go back to my traditional grid view. This is a really helpful way to look through your scriptures, because you can see this subtitle down here, this label that shows you the reference of what verse it is. So if the speaker is speaking and say, let's go to verse 3, you can select verse 3 and it'll come up right away. And you can see here, this show is showing this version of the Bible and that version of the Bible, the same one verse. All right. And it tells you the versions of the Bible that you got down below. All right. Now, when it comes to creating these particular shows from the scripture tab, they automatically are created and they're added right into the last section that you were in. So I can move this one up because this is a scripture. I can move it up to my scripture section and you'll see it there. And it'll give you the reference that you can easily identify when you're trying to pull it up. Okay. Now, just because you select an actual show out of your project, it does not change what the audience sees. Okay. This is important to give you some comfort. Like I said, the goal of this is to equip you to be comfortable using this program for the shows. And so it doesn't change what the audience sees. They still see Genesis chapter 1, verse 3, but I selected 1 Corinthians chapter 12. All right. Now you'll see it darkened and you'll see a little light, a highlight next to it. So I can click on oceans. You'll see the highlight next to it on the left, which is my theme color of blue. And you'll see it darkened here. But the yellow highlight is still around Genesis chapter 1 because that's what my audience sees. And you'll see that yellow box here. It represents the same yellow box that you got on the left side there. All right. Now, if you want this to be a highlight color like that, let me show you just quickly how I made that happen. If I go into my settings, I'm going to right click on this and just go to edit. If you want your outputs to have a different color code, and whichever the first one is going to be the one that's going to be the color that's going to be the highlight around your sections, you right click on that and you can select change color. All right. And so if I wanted to change this color and I want it to be pink, I can hit save. And notice the pink box shows up there. If I go back to my shows, guess what? It's a pink box around the active show that's in the primary output. All right. Now, I don't necessarily want it to be pink. I like the yellow that I had. I like other colors as well, but I'm going to make it go back to yellow. I might even make it blue. I like the blue as well. Let me see. I'll save that. And so it's got a blue highlight around it. And the blue highlight looks fine to me as well. So I like that light blue. It's still a highlight, like yellow as well. Green would be nice. Pink is really nice and bright as well. You want to find something that's going to give you an easy eye catch that you can easily know where you are pretty simply without taking too much energy. And then whatever you selected, it'll be darkened with a little, mine is a blue theme. If you have the pink theme, it'll be pink on the left side there. All right. So this is how you organize your shows. This is how you create your shows. Now, I showed you how to create a show of a Bible collection, but what if you just want to do an individual Bible? So I can just select one version of the Bible. All right. This says Bibles, and this part down here, this breakout says API Bibles. Now the difference, these are local Bibles that I've downloaded and are saved to my computer. This one, API, these are Bibles that are only accessible when I have access to the internet. All right. And you can download or go to find as many of these as you want to from the very bottom where you can select new scripture. Okay. But I'm in the New Living Translation. Notice that it changed here, but my template didn't change. All right. So in order to change my template for scriptures, I can just go over here to this template for scripture or the scripture template option, and I can just pick a scripture template that I like. So in order for it to be a helpful scripture reference involved, you need to make sure that you see a box for the text and a box for the reference. All right. This one, for example, just has one big box. It won't show the reference, right? If we're in Romans or Genesis or something like that, it won't show it. So you need to find one that you created or that's there by default that has it down below. And so I like this one here that just says big and it says scripture there. So I'll select that and notice what you get here. You've got the preview of what it'll look like if you were to select it. If you don't want to change what you're doing up here, but you want to quickly get to one of these, you can simply double click and it'll automatically update whatever this template is. It'll automatically show to your audience. All right. A quick double click will do that. You could also, let me go back out. I'll go to 1 Corinthians again. And if I were to go down here and I select this is Genesis chapter 1, verse 6, I can hit play and it'll do the same thing. All right. It'll pull it up and notice that it has the template that I had down here, but it kept the backdrop from the current show. The way that shows work is if you are using a template, the template will just overlay whatever background is already there, unless your template has a built-in background with it. My preference for consistency's sake in the middle of a show, it's easier for me to keep my background separate from my templates. So most of my templates you're going to find when I'm doing a show or when I'm using FreeShow, my backgrounds are going to be tied to the show, but not to the template. And so you'll notice in the top left, you'll see this icon. If I click up here, you'll see I can hover over it and it says you can remove background and it'll turn red and you can select it. But I want to keep that background there. And when you select or add an image to it, it automatically applies to every show or every slide afterwards. All right. Now here's one here. This is actually an action that's tied to this particular slide. I can hit that red button and it'll make it go away. All right. So now there's no action on that slide. All right. So we're talking about how to make sure we know how to create shows for lyrics and presentations. And then we just talked about how to do them for scriptures. Now, to customize the look, just quickly, At the bottom here, we've got some options to where you can split long verses. If you want your shows to have consistent size to where you don't have to worry about them running over or being really small if you got them set to auto size, I would turn on split long verses. All right. And what that does is it gives you a visual reference of the size. It says, hey, what size? And it's set to 80 right there. You can go here on the left side and you'll see exactly what verses got split. And it'll show you an A and a B to that verse. So I can go here and you'll see that that verse is split. And it says Genesis chapter 1, verse 2, A. When I arrow to the right, actually, let me see. Let me go here. If I arrow to the right here, you'll see it goes to part B, and you'll see the B there. So your audience will know that it's split because they'll see a portion of it, and you'll see also the reference there shows you that portion is split out. All right. So it's really helpful, really intuitive the way that FreeShow has it set up. The other thing you can do is you can adjust the verse numbers. Okay. So you can say, you know what? I want to change the way that the verse numbers look. And so earlier we see this verse number here and it's 2B and it's white, but maybe I want it to be bigger. So I'm gonna make it be 45. And then I also want it to be a different color. I want it to be yellow. All right. So now when I go to my next verse, I'm gonna just arrow over. You'll notice that 3 is there. It's a little bit bigger and it's yellow. All right. And so that is how you would manipulate your shows to show or customize the way your verses look. Now, once you do that, every Bible scripture that you pull up from the drawer down here that you create a show with is going to do the same setup. All right. It's going to have that same verse number reference piece because this is a part of the scriptures tab. It's not a part of your template. Okay. Now for me, I'm going to turn it back. I like it to stay white because most of my templates have white text. And I'm okay with it being in white text. The size is fine. I don't mind it being that big, but if I go here, you'll see here being that big is not a big deal to me. I like it that way. So that's fine. And so you can decide that on your own. Now down here, the show reference, if we go down, hit that little arrow, you'll see the options. You can change the way your reference is shown. And so for me right now, I've got it set to where it's the scripture reference, which is the book, the chapter, and the verse. And then next to that, I put parentheses, and then I had the brackets show the version. And so what that does is it gives you the NLT in parentheses, as opposed to it just being without parentheses, right? So if I didn't want it to have the parentheses, I can go back into this section and I can delete those parentheses. And it can be just like that, and it'll be the version. Now it's going to pull that version from whatever the title of the label of that Bible is here. Okay, these have a full length name. If I right click on those, you can rename them if you want to, but I've shortened my names of these here. All right. So now when I go to a new verse, I took the parentheses off, and now notice there's no parentheses on this version. Since I abbreviated it, I wanted to put it in parentheses just to kind of break it up. And so that was just my own personal preference. And I'm going to put those back in there. Let's see here. If I can see my keyboard right. There we go. All right. So I got that back in there. And so now my next verse will have parentheses in it because I arrowed over to the next one by going down here to these options here. Okay. So that is how you would manipulate, or not manipulate, but manage and edit your scriptures and manipulate the way that they look as well. And you can also combine your reference with the text. I don't recommend that personally, but it's definitely something you can do. If you notice that your templates are showing the inverse way that you want, to where your scripture reference is big at the top and your actual text of the verses at the bottom and is small, you may need to select the option that says invert items, and that'll help kind of course correct that and flip those around. But it also just has to do with the way that you've built your template. My personal preference would be to go back into the template and change the order of those particular items on that template. Okay. Now, let's talk about manipulating your slides. So we figured out how to organize them. We figured out how to find them. Let's talk about how to manipulate these things. All right. And so there's a lot of ways you can do it. We were just talking about one just briefly in the scripture section, but let's talk about templates and shows. If I go over here to the templates tab, you'll notice that there's a number of different templates that show up. If I go to all, you'll see that I have all my templates showing up here, and I've got a load of them. I got quite a few different templates. You won't have nearly this many, but you definitely will have any that I have that have this little shield icon, because those are defaults. Okay. And so you'll see these have it here. So I want to make or find a scripture template, a template that shows the scriptures. So what I've done is I've gone over here and I've made some templates. So I got templates. There are categories already set up for your templates as well. So I can go to my scriptures and you'll notice that I've got quite a few of those here as well. And so this one has the reference without a box. So this right now is showing the scripture with a box, and it has a little bit of a darkened section there. And it's called my new training template there. But I can easily switch it by simply clicking the template. I go there and the entire show changed to where now all of them look like this with this type of font for the text and this type of font for the reference. No box around it, no background behind it. Okay. That's how easy it is to change the whole look of your show. Now, earlier when I was creating this and I hit the new show button at the bottom, I said you don't have to worry about editing individual slides. This is why, because your template will automatically edit every slide for you. Okay. If I want to change all these slides to have this type of template where it's a box that's kind of translucent and then the reference at the bottom, I simply click it and all of them will get that treatment. Okay. And you can just click on any of them and you'll see that update on every slide in your show. Let's talk about adding backgrounds. I briefly referenced it, but let's talk more about it. If you go to your media, you'll see a list of all your different media that you've got. For me, I've got a folder that I've already created and it's called YOLO Box Files. And in here, I've got my favorite templates. They're called grunge backgrounds. You can get those on my website if you like them and you want to have this exact same copy of different backgrounds for you to use at your ministry. Feel free to use them and get those from my website. For the backgrounds, it's a little bit different, okay? Because the templates, we just simply had to click and it automatically applied to everything. For the backgrounds, if you click this background, it will change the output. It will change the output and it'll automatically show up there. But we don't want to change the output because we're talking about shows. So we want to change the show. So if we go here and we select this blue one, if I drag it up to the very first slide, watch what happens. Every slide after this in this particular show, only in this show, will get that same background treatment. Kind of like we did with the templates where you select that template, it applies to everything. It's the same way with the backgrounds. When you drag a new background in to your show on the first slide, it automatically applies to every other slide. Now notice the template didn't change. We still got this translucent black box. We still got the scripture reference at the bottom. It only changed the background. They're separate. So I can change it to whatever I want for the field that I want for this particular week, potentially, and it'll be there. All right. Notice that it did not change. The only way it changes is if you hit the update icon here or you just click on an actual slide in your show. Okay, so that's how the backgrounds work to manipulate your show. If you want to have one slide that has a unique background, let's say I want this blue slide to be here on this one, I can just drag it on there and watch what happens. It affects the slide that I dragged it on in every consecutive slide after that. Okay, that's why I always recommend putting it on the very first slide because it'll affect everyone after it. Okay. For this case, it applies and it'll go that way. If you want this one to be gold again, you have to go back and just simply add the gold to there. And now you got this unique blue background for this particular slide. This is helpful because backgrounds don't have to just be these downloaded images you have. You also can go up in the same media bin and go to online. And here you can have access to Pixabay pictures, right? Online images and Unsplash images. So let's say I wanted to do, I'm gonna say brick wall. Oh. And it gives me some images or pictures of a brick wall. So I can select this and I can drag this on to my show and notice that it applied to everyone except where there was a particular background dragged specifically on that slide. And so now this slide looks like this. When I arrow to the right to go to the next slide, it looks like the same. But then this one, we added our own specific background. It stays there. Okay. So if you want to keep a consistency, I wouldn't add backgrounds to the middle of your slideshow or the middle of your show. I would just add them to the very beginning. So if I take that off, by hovering over it and selecting, it'll turn red. You click it, it removes that background and it keeps the predominant one from the very first slide there. All right. Now, earlier I said if you select an image, a piece of media, it will change the output. So if I select this like burgundy brick wall, watch what happens. It changed. Okay. The audience sees this now. But when I go to the right to go to my next slide, guess what's going to happen? It automatically changes to the content of what's in this show. Okay. So this is important to understand, is that when you change your background for your show and you want it to be there, you need to drag it to the very first slide. Okay. If you notice on the right side here, I've got another output. This is like a live stream output that's showing the lower thirds. And now this is not changing my show. It's just changing the template that is shown on my live stream output. Okay. And so you don't have to worry about making sure that your show has lower thirds built in. You just need to do that on your output. You set up an output and your output dictates what it will look like on whatever it's displayed on. And in this case, I've got my primary and I've got my live training, and they both are different in terms of the way they look, but the content is exactly the same. They both say a spiritual gift is given, a spiritual gift is given. Same reference and everything. Okay. And so that is something that allows FreeShow to be very unique. It's consistent across the board for your shows. All right. Another thing you can do to manipulate your shows, you can right click on an individual slide. All right. So I can go over here to my show and I can right click on a slide. I've got options here to edit, which brings me to that top arrow to area up here that allows you to edit that slide. But I also can change the group of this slide. I can add a group, I can rename it, and that just changes whatever that label is up under the slide. I also can go here and I can do slide actions. This one's pretty cool because in here you can do quite a bit of things if you want to automate something in your show. You can go here and say, okay, when I get to this show, hit that start action. When I get to this slide, on this show, you can make it run a certain action. You can make it clear the background. You can make it clear the overlays or something along those lines. And that's all going to be particular to your needs. But you can do that in your show by simply right clicking on any slide. So I can right click on it again. We got the slide actions. We can also do activate with a shortcut, activate on MIDI. We can do a new slide timer or next slide timer. You can also do an option that says go to start. All right. Next on media finish. So you can make it, if you have a video playing in this slide, you can hit this icon here for the slide action and say, go ahead and move on to the next slide once the video is done. Okay. And you also can add in some animation to that particular slide as well. You also can make this particular slide in the show up on a particular output, and you can pick any output that you have created. And I've got a few of them created here. You may only have one or two. One of them might say default. I renamed mine and put the 1, 2, 3 in front of them because I want my primary to be the first one that I see in my preview. Okay. And you might want to do the same thing. Now, this will allow this particular slide to only show up on that particular output. So I got this one set to where it's only showing up on the primary. So if I go here, okay, notice that this is what the audience sees in-house. This is what the audience sees online. They both say 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 4. All right. If I go here though, check this out. This one says 1 Corinthians chapter 5. We serve the same Lord, but this one, the live stream, is still on verse 4. All right. Chapter 12, verse 4. I said chapter 5, I think earlier, but it's verse 4. This one didn't change because this one's designed to only go to the primary output. So you can literally manipulate where individual slides in your show will be visible. Okay. I can easily get rid of that by going over and selecting it where it's red, and it'll remove that. So now I can go back here and I can come back to this and notice that it'll show up there now. Okay. They both are going to show the same verse now because it's not specific output selected. If we right click again, we can see even more. We can do some more formatting. We can actually adjust this to where we can make the entire show, our entire slide be uppercase. We can make it lowercase. You can trim things and all kinds of cool stuff. Okay. Transitions, you can change the transition for it and all that good stuff as well. Now, another thing that you can do is you can make a category action. Okay. So if you wanted to say every time that I play songs, all right, every time I play a song in FreeShow, I want to make sure that there are no overlays. Okay, none. Okay, what that means is you can just go over to your to your shows, I'm sorry, and go down to the category that says songs and right click on that and then set a category action. All right. Now, what this will do is it'll open up a list of all the actions you've created. If you haven't created an action, you won't be able to find it. But if you have any, you can select this little dash and you'll see all the actions you've created. All right. So you can clear out or make it do whatever you want. You can make it go to the next show. You can make it remove overlays like we talked about. So I can select that and it'll remove the overlays on any show that's in that category. Okay. It applies to the entire category. So that's something that's really cool. And this is something you can get super creative with. So I'm not going to limit you. I want you to be exposed to it because I want you to understand that this is an option. Okay. Now, along those same lines, you may not want it to be on the entire category. Maybe you just want it to be on the show. And so if I hit this here, your scriptures don't give you the option to add an action, but your songs, if I go to a song and I hit that little arrow, check out what happens. It gives you this option that says you can assign a custom action for this show that will trigger whenever this show becomes active. All right. And so when it says when this button is clicked, all right, so you can say, okay, I want to add an action to this show and I want to do it. And I want it to be, let's say, start timer on active, start music for countdown. We'll do that one. All right. So on this particular show, I've got this unique action for this show. So it might be a sound effect that you might want to add an action to because of the style of show that it is. Maybe it's a presentation or something like that. All right. So when I make it go away, it gives you the category action there. So it gives me that pop up. When I click that, it starts to play the action. All right. Now I'm going to clear that out just for the sake of clarity. All right. But I hit that arrow again, it gives me the option to change that to be something else. So let's say we want it to be something else, like stop music. All right. I can close it out and I can close that down. And now you'll see that action is always showing up to say stop music, along with all the other options that we had earlier. All right. Speaking of the other options, we can also click on this little clock icon. Okay. And it gives you a timer, a next slide timer that applies to all of your shows and it shows you the exact time. So it literally is only to apply to all. If you wanted to apply to individual slides, you can right click on the slide and add a next slide timer. But in this case, if you said we want them to all be 10 seconds, it'll make this show be 4 minutes and 10 seconds. Now for a worship song, you don't necessarily want to apply some type of timer. Okay. So I'm gonna close that out. But if you were doing a presentation or maybe you had like a loop that you were doing. So let's say something like this. Let's see, this is actually a video, but let's say you had a series of slides kind of like this that were just images. That's when you can put or would like to probably put in a timer like that. You can go to that next show timer for the entire show. This is actually a video, so you can't see it. But let's see if I go to this one here, I can click on that and I can do it. This one ended up being 2 minutes and 40 seconds. All right. And so you can do that with individual shows. That's a really cool feature. This clock icon is a really cool feature for if you're trying to do like a countdown timer loop or something along those lines, and you want all the slides to just be 4 seconds or 10 seconds each or 5 seconds each. This is the quick and easy way. And then what it'll do is it'll make that last slide loop back to the very first one for you automatically. All right. That's the quickest way to make a loop show. All right. The next thing I want to show you guys is adding actions. All right. Adding actions to your show. We talked about it from here. You can add an action by clicking on that. But did you know you can just go to your functions tab, go to your actions, and you can drag an action onto any slide that you want to. So let me go to this show here, and I wanted to have fireworks on this slide. All right. So I can go here and we can see that I've got my slides. I got my background. When I go here to the next slide on that show, since I dragged the action onto that slide, it automatically started that action because I put the action there. Okay. Now you can customize those actions to be whatever you want. by creating a new one or just picking from ones that you've already created. And I've got quite a few. You likely won't have that many, but what that does is it saves you time and energy to make sure you don't forget to do something that you know you want to make sure happens when you get to a specific slide in your show. All right. So this is my deep dive. It's not a quick, it's a deep dive. This is us in the lab working on things, playing around with FreeShow, understanding all about shows. All right. So if you have any questions, leave a note in the comments below. Hopefully you can walk away with this understanding so much more about shows than you ever have. And I got one bonus tip for you, one more bonus tip. And this has to do with, if I go over here to the right and I select more options, I can go to notes and I can type in a note. I'm gonna just say special note. And this special note is tied to this slide, okay? Or I'm sorry, to this show. It's not tied to an individual slide. It's tied to this entire show. So if you got a special note that you need to make, maybe to the volunteers, right? You might say, make sure to clear overlays. That would be something that I would make into an action, honestly, but something along the lines of this, right? Maybe it might be make sure to turn on the lights, right, before you start service, or make sure to power down the computer, or something like that. You can leave a special note. I've labeled mine special note, but you can just type anything you want to there, and that's coming over to the right, and you can do so. All right. The other part of this, in this section, you also can record the timing of your slides from your FreeShow slides in here as well. And we've already talked about the metadata. We've talked about the media. This one actually just shows, in this case, I've got this action tied to it. It'll show you any media on this particular show, and then the groups that are in this particular show as well. All right. And if you wanted to add Genesis chapter 1, verse 4, I can select it and it'll add it in there, and it'll be a second option of it. Okay. I can right click on this and I can delete it from the show. I can remove the group from the layout. So if you do that, if I remove the group, it takes it out, but verse 4 is still here. It just took it out of this particular layout. All right. Now let's talk real quick. These are more bonus tips. All right. So more bonus tips about show layouts. Okay. Let's go to a song. For songs, you have an option that's called layouts. Layouts are really cool. All right. I got this song that we created, I Speak Jesus. It's got a verse 1 and a verse 2. It's got a chorus 1. And maybe the way that our ministry team wants to start this out, they want to create another version. Okay. I call them a version. In FreeShow, it's called a new layout. So I'm going to say new layout. We're going to call this one short. And so we're going to create this short version that's not going to have verse 1 and verse 2 in it. We're going to right click on this and we're going to say remove the group from the layout. Took it out, remove this group from the layout. And we're going to start with the chorus. Now, I'm not a musical director. I'm not a worship leader or anything along those lines. So this may or may not make any sense to do in real life. But my goal is to equip you to understand how to manipulate your show. And so you can change this to now this particular short version starts on chorus 1. The default one still starts with verse 1. All right. You can have as many of these as you want. So I can make a whole nother one and I can call this one shorter. All right. So I got default, short, and shorter. All right. From this one, I can right click and I can say, I want to remove this group, and it's taking out anything that's under that group, anything in that section. So all three of these, I can right click on that, remove that from the group. I can go down. Let's see. We got the bridge. We don't want the bridge in there. Let's remove that from this. And we'll take out, we got the chorus there. Chorus 3. We'll take out chorus 3. And we'll take out this bridge. And then we've got a whole new version of this song for our worship team to sing. And all the volunteer has to do is go to the shorter version and play it. This might be a good time to add a note to say, play shorter version on third Sundays. Okay. Now, if I go here to the default, you'll see it's not there. It's not there. And then we got it here. Okay. And so you might need to make that note on the default if that's the one that's going to be defaulting to. Okay. You might put a note in here that says, hey, play shorter on third Sunday. All right. And so now it says, oh, play shorter. Let me go to the shorter. And it reemphasizes that same note. Okay. And so this is all about shows in FreeShow. Hopefully you learned a lot. My question to you is, what is your favorite thing that you learned today about shows? Leave me a note in the comments. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you for watching this video. I really hope it helped you in a major way. Now, at this point, most people would ask you to like and subscribe, and I think that's great, but my goal is a little bit different. My goal is to empower as many people as possible all over the globe. And there's one way that you can really help me do that, and that is to leave a comment below with a question, a thought, how this video may have helped you, or things that were left out that you still have questions about, and to share this video with someone just like you, someone who is looking for answers, someone who's curious and wants to grow. With your help, I believe we can build a community of people that want to grow together. So until next time, God bless.